You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. Whether it's for food, fuel, drinks, or snacks, about half of the U.S. population shops at a convenience store every day. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
Here's the big question we're going to talk about today. Should we get rid of the penny? Now, we know that it costs more to make the penny than the penny's worth. From the convenience standpoint, we know it can slow down lines, and everyone in the country has a coin jar that's full of pennies and may have had something to do with the coin shortage that we had last summer. So why is the penny still around? That's what we're going to talk about today, and we're going to find that there's a lot of opposition to why we should get rid of the penny. All part of today's discussion. Welcome, Convenience Matters. My name is Jeff Lenard with NACS.
And I'm Carolyn Schnare, also with NACS.
Today we have two guests who put together a movie called Heads Up, Will We Stop Making Sense?, which looks at the penny from all different angles, why we should keep it, why we should get rid of it, what it means to our daily lives. So we have two guests today who put together the movie. Let's welcome Zach Edick and Jamie Kovach. So welcome, Zach and Jamie.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, hello. We're happy to be here with you.
So one first thing before we even get to the questions, I can't help but notice the name of your media company is called Snack Pack, which totally fits the convenience store industry. So kudos for having the same mindset as we do in snacks and how important they are to daily lives.
Yeah, you can never have too many snacks.
Yes, we're big
pudding.
big snackers here.
Well, that's what convenience stores are all about, and we certainly handle a lot of pennies. There are about 165 million transactions in a convenience store every day. So obviously, the penny is pretty essential when you look at the percentage of people who pay by cash on a daily basis, about 1 in 5 still. So let's start with a basic question. What made you say, okay, let's dedicate a substantial part of the next year or more of our lives to diving into whether the penny should live or die, and who do we need to talk to about it?
Well, that's a great question. It was really born from Zach's brain, I would say, on this one, in terms of where the idea came from, mostly coming from the fact that his mom is an accountant. So that's always mattered a lot to him. So I'm going to toss it to Zach.
Yeah, so I just grew up in a household where the way that my mom spoke, thought, and just generally treated us was to be aware of what the value of things are, how long they're going to last. And that's something that reverberates through me at all times. So when the concept you brought up already for seniorage, when you compare what a coin costs to produce versus what it's worth in the street, that's a concept that lived with me. And so that's just personal. But big picture, we knew that money is a part of everyone's lives. It's in everyone's pockets. And we knew we could track down a lot of interesting stories. And people might want to tune in and check out the film, because this question is going to impact their lives as well.
Right. It's like one of the few things that will literally impact every person in the country.
So when you put together the movie, you have a basic premise. It's like, I think this is what we're going to explore, and I think these are the people that we want to talk to along the way. But was there something that just blew you away in terms of, oh, we got to think in a totally different direction? We thought we had the reins of this, and now we're kind of pulling things in a different direction now.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's one thing that's really cool about making a documentary is you can set out with any specific plan and think you're going to get this person to say A, B, and C for you. But then once you're out there and you're making things, people really bring new ideas to the table and point you in the direction of new people. And you're like constantly following the path. And then it's a totally different thing when you get back to the editing studio and you're listening to all of it and kind of weaving together what you thought the story was going to be and what it does become. I think some of the things that were really interesting for me was just realizing how little value the penny has to people in their lives. Like, obviously a cent isn't worth that much, but the fact that people do just toss them in the trash. Like, to me, I was like, oh, I'm kind of in camp. We can get rid of the penny, but I would still never throw one away.
My kids do that.
Yeah.
We busted our kids doing the same thing. And it's like, at least stick it next to the trash can. Somebody else can decide if it's not trash, but don't you.
Feed it to the dogs.
Right.
That's what they do.
So one other thing that surprised me when that's the question I was asking, could we or should we retire the penny? And what surprised me was this question has been asked before and it's been asked for a long time. And so it's been brought up in our government, and coinage reform legislation has been brought all the way to Congress in the 80s. So this is something that kind of keeps coming up for more than a 30-year period. And I think we're kind of on the timetable of what it feels like probably in the next 30 years it will happen. Obviously, there are some more important issues to work through right now than the coinage reform. But that's where our intuition lies. Yeah,
I mean, it is pretty startling how long it's been an issue and how long. I mean, we're at 40 years of people trying to get rid of the penny with no success. So we'll see how many more years it takes for us to get there.
But Zach just put it on the line and say in the next 30 years. So he's really laying out his reputation on it. Can you narrow it down to maybe 20 or 10?
I know. I feel like the 30 is a pretty safe window. You're like keeping it, it's like, but I think that it's hard to say, the government's a slow moving machine. And that's one thing that we really touch on in the film is that unlike other countries that have made these decisions, like Canada, in the U.S., it has to go through Congress. And so to even be an important enough issue to make it to the table, let alone to get everybody to agree on it, as you know, can be a very, very long, slow process. So it's hard to say.
So when you talk about coinage reform, now this episode is devoted to the penny, but is coinage reform... And I know every bill is different. Is this like other coins like on the hook for like getting thrown out here? Like, should we have an episode about like the nickel in like a couple days?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of part of the conversation. And part of the reason that it hasn't passed so far is that it's always been packaged with other things. So I think the bill in the 80s they tried to pass was let's get rid of the penny and then let's also replace the dollar bill with the dollar coin. And so yes, it's always been packaged with these other ideas, or there's the conversation about, yes, maybe we get rid of the nickel. And then what happens with so there's lots of different things, and different countries have handled it differently. But in the US, it's never come in as just a singular issue. They always try to make the bill have many different aspects to it.
I think another part of the bills that could come up is coin composition, right, and then deciding what the coins are made out of and balancing the budgets to say, what are we going to make the coins out of?
Yeah, because when you look at Congress, when NACS was involved in a loose coalition in the 80s to look at, do we need the penny? And you found out that there were the zinc lobby was quite adamant. And pennies are no longer made from copper; they're made from zinc largely. And the zinc lobby was very protective of keeping the penny. You had people who were very, very partial to Abraham Lincoln who wanted the penny. So you get these different groups that kind of threw some sand in the gears in terms of looking at what their constituents were saying as opposed to what might work for a broader group.
Right. I do think that things are shifting, though, as we move more and more away from cash and as like the value of the cent declines even further. I feel like you could get more constituents behind the idea of getting rid of it. But yes, the zinc lobby is a powerful force for sure.
As a pivot to talk about specifically Jardin Zinc. So in the film, you'll see the state of Tennessee has a lot of zinc mines. And then therefore some companies or a company, Jardin Zinc, takes that zinc and they make coin blanks, which they sell to the U.S. Mint to produce pennies. So they produce these little coin blanks that are 97% zinc with a copper coating. And it's our understanding that that's their largest their highest sold item or their highest produced item. So it's our understanding that the Jarden Zinc Company funds a pro-penny lobby called Americans for Common Sense. And you can look up and find out about Americans for Common Sense at pennies.org and kind of see the work that they're up to and the information they share.
Well, one of my favorite parts of the movie is you did an experiment where you looked at how people might treat the penny. Do you want to walk us through that experiment with that you showed in the movie?
Sure. So in the film, we live in Austin, Texas. And so we decided to set up an experiment just up the street from us on the campus of the University of Texas, where there are tons of pedestrians and foot traffic along the sidewalks. So we lay down 2 pennies because we thought one might not even catch people's attention at all. So we lay down 2 coins on the street and we waited with a camera way off to the side just to see when or if somebody would notice and bend down and pick them up, really to see, like, is it worth somebody's time even to bend over and pick up a penny? So we waited, and I believe we had over 400 people walk by and do nothing before somebody spotted them and picked them up.
And that totally feels something that we've seen in our industry. I remember a couple of years ago, one of our retail members was talking about gas prices, and her exact quote was, somebody will see 2 pennies on the ground while they're going to pump gas and they'll leave it alone. But if they see a gas price 2 cents cheaper down the street, they'll go there. But there was just something about, I don't want to pick up the penny, but I'll inconvenience myself to save 2 of them.
Right, 100%.
That's funny. Just the psychology that people have. I think there are a lot of mental systems people have about how they feel about money and how they spend their money.
And it's funny, too, because the guy that did end up picking up the pennies, we interviewed him afterwards, and he said that it wasn't about the value, just that, his dad had always talked to him about the good luck of picking up a heads-up penny. And it was like more about that than it was about the actual value of the coins themselves.
You remind me of my grandmother, I think, maybe my great-grandmother. She used to say, find a penny, pick it up all day long, you'll have good luck. And I do. Exactly. I'm the one that'll pick it up.
Yes, exactly.
And I just want to share, too, how we edit that scene in the film. It's paired with a scene with Ally Bank. So Ally Financial is based in Detroit, and they did kind of a PR campaign where they made fake pennies that were actually worth $1,000. So if you found it with the Ally Bank logo and it had $1,000 imprint on it, they scattered them around the country. And then if you found them, you could turn them in for the prize. And so we're kind of cutting those 2 scenes together about, are you the kind of person that picks up the random penny and meanwhile you could win money for this prize?
Right. But it was funny even for them with their $1,000 pennies. They were like, well, people kept throwing them away, or they would get swept up by street sweepers, or like, even when the penny was worth $1,000, nobody cared about it.
So it wasn't getting $1,000. It was pick up the penny and get an IMDb page.
Yeah, basically.
So I have a question as it relates to our industry, the convenience industry. Well, a lot of things, but we'll focus on convenience, which one of the things that makes our industry most convenient is the speed of service. And a lot of people pay with cash. A lot of people pay with credit. A lot of people pay with their wrists, with their Apple Pay, with their phone, you name it these days. But there are, again, people who pay with cash. My dad is one of them. And, he'll be the one that's digging around his pocket, finding the last 12 cents that he needs just so that he doesn't have to, he pays exact change all the time. So that can be kind of annoying if you're standing 4 deep behind that person and you just want to get your soda and get out of line. So did you talk about or do you look at, or even does the bills in Congress ever focus on how money or change, I should say, or especially pennies, may slow us down? In which point, I think, Jeff, you might even be able to know better than us, the NACS side of things, we'd probably say, yeah, you know what, we want it faster. So let's get rid of that penny.
Do you want to comment, Jeff?
Well, that was mainly our focus. That's why you want to talk to the convenience store industry about that. And there's go Google The Onion. There's a story about, and obviously The Onion's not real, but it was obviously written by somebody with a great familiarity with the convenience store industry. And it was he was trying to right wrongs of all the people who annoyed him at his job. And one of them was the always ringing the deli bell guy, but another one was always pays with pennies guy. So obviously, it does resonate, but really, it's the people behind them in line. It's cashiers, the customer interface. It's always good to have one-on-ones with customers, but we just kind of went through, and if there's 165 million transactions a day in this country, and from convenience stores alone, if we save every one of those transactions just 1 cent, or let's just say we save 5 on one and we don't save any on 4 others, or 4 others, but roughly 1 second a transaction we save, that's giving back people a cumulative 5 years a day. And if we can shave off more than that, just imagine how much time we could save. Now, granted, maybe people will take that time and just look at one more TikTok video. Maybe it won't be like, GNP related, but the idea is, how do you make things just a little faster? And we sell convenience. So I think that can play into the argument about why we might look to discontinue the penny as we move along, because it costs more than it's worth and it slows people down.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I just want to make sure the audience knows is that Jeff Lenard is a featured interview in our film. And so you get to just tune in and check out some more of this knowledge and specific to the convenience store industry with our segment with Jeff.
That's where he was like plugging the IMDb, because he's like, I'm on there.
Well, I will just quickly on that.
Yeah,
that's a huge example for anybody in any type of business to get that wow effect. You were in constant contact with everybody, and you were talking to some pretty high level people. It wasn't just Jeff from NACS. You were talking to people at the Fed and the Mint and things like that. But then you send out this note and it's like, just wanted to let everybody know we've created IMDb pages, and that's the Internet Movie Database. If you don't have one already, and if you did, we added to it. And it's like, that's a step beyond. So it was just a cool example of really knowing how to wow your customer. So kudos to you.
Awesome. Well, I want to touch too a little bit on the idea of convenience and think about 2 things that came to mind from when we were working on the film. We actually did another experiment that didn't make it into the cut, where we had put a ton of pennies on the ground, and we had various people that we stopped on the street pick them up one by one to see how many they could pick up in a minute, and see if they could even achieve what their hourly wage was, just in terms of the amount of time it takes to pick up a penny and put it in your pocket. And is that even really worth your time at all? And we didn't end up using it in the film, but it was a fun experiment just to see, because for a lot of people, they're like, no, it's really not worth that extra time. That 1 cent doesn't really break down to even what I make in my day-to-day job. So why would I want to deal with one?
So how much does one pick up in 1 minute?
Well, it really depends. We had one person that was super speedy.
And the winner of that experiment earned $14.40 an hour at the rate she picked up pennies.
Yeah.
But this goes into, this is part of, we interview professors in the film. And I think the professor at Wake Forest, Robert Waples, this is part of his argument. If you compare the average hourly wage of an American citizen compared to these times for how much time it takes you to pick up.
And for some of the people, it was like they were maybe going to make $6 an hour or something tops. So definitely not there. But I also wanted to say too that we also have a segment in our film where we talk with some examples of people who have used pennies specifically to make a statement about inconvenience. Like, for example, when we had a gentleman who chose to pay a tax bill in all pennies and did the wheelbarrows full of them just to make the DMV have to count them one by one. So there's examples of people are using it because we see it as an inconvenience, using it as this big example to try and make a statement and be kind of, an a-hole a little bit to the government in their actions. So, that was one of my favorite characters that we talked to in the film, but you can see that that's really what the penny represents to the American people at this point, is that it's a real pain in the butt.
That guy's
so
probably
the headline is guy slows down DMV.
Right.
That's kind of like, I like that.
Yeah. So, they make us wait all the time. So he just wanted to make them wait too, I guess.
I know Carolyn and I want to talk a little bit about movie making and some tips for folks, because we all either consume or make movies, whether it's big time movies like you guys or smaller TikTok. You can follow me, my dance videos and all that. But no, not really.
I was going to say, are you on there, Jeff? I will follow you.
No, I look at the kids laughing silently, and I know they're either laughing at me or laughing at TikTok.
Yeah.
But just final question, just wrapping up, I guess 2 final questions related to the penny is, what about the distrust? And unfortunately, our country, there's a lot of distrust on this side, that side, wherever. With the idea of getting rid of the penny, the general presumption, and I hear it all the time, is, well, they'll just take that money and increase their prices. Nobody will ever reduce their prices round down. It's just going to make things more expensive. But I think what we've seen in Canada, it works pretty well. So first question for either one of you was how do you feel about the element of distrust? And then the question for both of you, thumbs up or thumbs down for the penny from your personal perspective after going through this journey?
Yeah, I think this is really important. I'm glad you brought this up. Is this the main thing? Is how does the public respond to the question? And just the fear and anxiety that can come from change. To say, oh, the world's literally, if the systems change, like, how am I going to make money, spend money? How are prices going to be set? It's kind of like a Y2K moment. Okay. And, digging into all the research and creating the film, we have some things and concepts to give you comfort, which is prices don't need to change at all. And if you pay with a check or a credit card or a debit card, your purchases are still going to end in 1 cent. That could still be end in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you pay with cash, then we do a deep dive into price rounding if you pay with cash. And it just totally evens out across the 10 digits. You have 0, 5, and 10 stay the same. And you have 1, 2, 6, and 7 round down, and 3, 4, 8, 9 round up. So these are.
Yeah. I think we talked to some different professors that had, really looked at thousands of transactions from actually using convenience stores as an example. And because the way rounding works is it's not from each product, but it's like, what's your total bill? And we're already rounding with sales tax. When sales tax is applied to a purchase, it's oftentimes doesn't end in an even cent. So it gets rounded either way. Same with gas prices, as I'm sure you guys know. So it's basically that same idea. It's just one rounding at the end of the transaction. And Professor Waples found, after studying all of these transactions, that it ends up being neutral. It rounds up as often as it rounds down, and there's no benefit direct to the consumer or the convenience store. Both kind of end up breaking even. So I think people are just distrustful of change and are apprehensive about it. And I think on its face value, people are like, yeah, we don't need the penny. But then they're like, wait, hold up, how would that work? And honestly, maybe we're not all as good at math as we should be. So it can be a little intimidating at first, but it's actually very simple. And as you said, Canada's a good example of somewhere that's done it, and it's not a big deal. And moving forward, I don't think most Canadians can think about it or worry about it at all now that it's happened. That
is the third act of our film is visiting with Canada, where they have discontinued the 1 cent coin. And you can just take a look and hear from them on how they did it and how they feel about it.
Well, as long as they're not apologetic about it.
Sorry.
It doesn't sound like they are. Sorry. No. We have a lot of listeners in Canada, so we love you too. Yeah. So we've talked a lot about the film. Jeff and I have both seen the film. Jeff was in the film. How do our listeners find more? Where do they watch it?
So our Heads Up is available to stream, rent, and buy on Amazon Prime Video and a second service called AltaVod. So you could just search Heads Up, Will We Stop Making Sense on Amazon.com, and AltaVod.com is spelled ALTAVOD.
So I know Carolyn was going to ask one other question about movie making tips for any of us, but before I interrupt her on that one, I have one more quick question. you guys are husband and wife. You worked together on this movie. And along the way, you had a baby daughter named Lucy, who's now 20 months old.
Right. Everyone thought we were going to name her Penny, but we didn't.
Thank you. That's my question. Did that at least make the top 5?
It's funny because I feel like, honestly, it may have had we not made this film. Like, I do think it's a cute name, but with this film, it was like very clearly we had to cross it out because we don't want her legacy tied to our work.
Would your vote be Penelope or Penny?
Oh.
I
would have gone with Abraham. You guys explain that one.
That would be one heck of a girl's name.
Yeah. Well, we'll save it and use it for a future family pet.
I think
there you go.
Yeah.
Jamie's mom really thought that we might have a Penny.
Well, what if they eliminate the Penny and then this poor kid, she grew up to be 20? They're like, "What's your name mean?"
Right.
I don't know.
It means coin. Goes back to Old English. It means coin.
Well, we are actually running out of time, but would you have any, as Jeff mentioned, he took the question literally right out of my mouth, any tips for making a movie? If someone wants to go out and make a movie about, like, let's say The Nickel, what's your quick bite on that?
I would say, so I'm going to say that Zach did most of the heavy lifting on this, but the first thing is finding a topic that actually really gets you excited and that you're excited to dive into and to research, and start with all that research and then start reaching out to the people who really know about that topic. And my number one pointer is that once you're out there in the world and you're interviewing is like, always ask whoever you're talking to, who else should I talk to? What else should I be considering? Because there's a wealth of knowledge out there. And as you, as the filmmaker, just have to be open to what other people can hand you. And everybody we talked to pointed us in the direction of 3 or 4 or 5 other people who ended up really building and creating a wonderful world for us to work with in the storytelling.
Yeah, I just second what Jamie said. It makes sure your subject is personally meaningful to you. And if you're gonna be working on it for a long time.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that is tremendous advice. And to all of you guys listening out there, you can listen on whatever device you're listening to go watch this movie because it's really interesting. And it'll be interesting to see what goes on with legislation, see if it goes anywhere in the next few years. So thank you, Zach and Jamie. I really appreciate you being on our show. And also, you lead me to something else that I was going to actually close with, which is for our listeners, because I wanted to do the same exact thing that she just suggested. Who else should I be talking to? And who else should I interview? And we've got a real quick survey up on our website, which is conveniencematters.com. And 30 seconds, maybe even less. We just want to know what you think, how you like our show, who else we should interview, any ideas you have. And for your time, I will send you a sticker, a Convenience Matters sticker, which is amazing. One in a lifetime sticker. Put on your water bottle, your coffee mug, wherever you want. Everybody loves stickers. So
and a penny. We'll send them a penny too.
Now I'm going to send you a penny too. Go ahead and do that. Give me your address and I will personally mail that to you. And I'm going to mail you both one as well. So stickers for everybody and pennies.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Carolyn.
So thank you. Thanks for being on the show. We really appreciate hearing everything. And thank you for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.